Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Mike Miners. He's an artist, entrepreneur, and founder of HouseHaus. Mike, welcome to the show.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. You have kind of an interesting background and you're doing a lot of really interesting things, but maybe before we kind of get into exactly what you're up to, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
I grew up in the Detroit area. My dad's a car guy, and so I grew up in suburban Detroit.
Sure. Okay. And so you walk me through your kind of childhood a little bit, kind of what got you into, kind of technology and kind of, helping kids and learning and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, this all just kind of grew out of kind of a common thing in entrepreneurism is to scratch your own itch.
Mm-hmm.
This is very much the case with me. I growing up in suburban Detroit, I come from kind of a family culture of entrepreneurism, and my dad was always out and striking out and doing his own things and kind of making his own dreams a reality.
That's great.
My mom's side of the family too is also very entrepreneurial. Actually, even more so, it's kind of generations of entrepreneurial spirit, and kind of the message that was always laid down to me from a very young age was when you have a cool idea, especially one you think would be good for the world, you just do it.
Okay, interesting.
You just do it. That was just always my example. Just watch people doing it all the time. And my mom, who was not an entrepreneur, she was a stay-at-home mom with a lot of passion for raising her kids. We saw that in her all the time too. She's a tremendous energy. Her motto when we were growing up was, "It's the hunt and the kill, baby."
Sure.
Like, that's just kind of the way she looks at life. So it's like every new opportunity she would just seize. Any cool idea she'd jump on, and we got to watch that happen all the time.
That's great, man.
So when I was a kid, I got, I had a lot of kind of parental family leeway to jump on my ideas and to make them happen, to do what I could to make them happen. And it was, it was allowed to be ugly. It was allowed to not work. I remember wanting to build a tree house, and the spirit in my house was, great, build a tree house. Not like, let's research and let's figure out how to build tree houses and maybe get you with an expert, and we have you send you to a treehouse building class where everything's ironed out ahead of time and there's not going to be any problems. It was just, all right, there's some wood over there. You can borrow my tools if you want, but see what you can do.
That's great. No, I think that's actually really interesting.
It's a great way to grow up.
Totally.
In terms of how that leads to what I'm doing is that it felt kind of unique to my family, although I think in general our culture had more of a spirit of allowing kids to just, try things that might not work.
Sure.
And leaving them to their own devices and, letting them leave the house and, we'll see you at dinner, and they're gone for 4 hours, and because there's no cell phones or anything like that, you don't know what the kids are doing. And so they can get into adventures and do things that don't work. We had more of that kind of culture. It felt like my family was a little bit more in that direction, at least in terms of project work. You got an idea, go do that thing.
Sure.
But when I went to school, it just wasn't. That was not the culture.
Sure. So walk me through your kind of school years. Like after high school, you've been to a bunch of kind of university and technology institutes. Can you walk me through that?
Well, I was a private school guy growing up, and so it was a lot of rigor around academics.
Right.
Honestly, I didn't have much patience for it. I didn't like it very much because it was just too regimented. But I was good at playing the game, and so I could do well in that environment. I could achieve the metrics that were called upon in those environments. But I hated it. I hated that there was never really a place for the thing that mattered to me.
Sure.
There was never time for the thing that mattered to me. There was never time to go off on a tangent. If I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Can we talk about? No, we can't. We got to move on. And which is understandable. There's all kinds of practical reasons why schools operate that way. So it's not really an indictment of that, but it's just it didn't sit well with me, and I always daydreamed about there being kind of a different approach. And so when I got to grad school, I just kind of endured this. So I'm actually in undergrad, there was a period where I just dropped out of school altogether, so that I could pursue things that were interesting to me.
Interesting.
But I found my way back to finish undergrad, and then was interested in grad school. I went to architecture school particularly because the work is about the work is generally built around what's interesting to the student. They're given a kind of an assignment to design a building, but that design is unique to each student. That
Sure.
They bring themselves to the work, and I always thought, oh, this is really cool. And walking and seeing people making things with their hands and building models and drawing, which were always things that I like to do. I was like, okay, this looks like a nice direction to point myself in and get myself a legitimate degree, to kind of please the authority figures in my life that thought of those things as important. I was like, okay, this is a good kind of mash. But when I was in grad school, in my final year, I had gone all the way through the curriculum, avoiding math, or at least faking it well enough, because I'd always considered myself horrible at math.
Sure.
And I hit one of these moments again where there was a tangent that I'd like to pursue. The professor was talking about stone arches.
Okay.
And she's up there talking about how the reason a stone arch works is because the shape of it means that any load on top of the arch puts all of the pieces in the arch in compression. The stone doesn't work in tension. If you pull stone, it breaks.
Right.
But if you push on it, it can hold a lot. So this is, she looked at the typical kind of half circle arch. She said, this is what happens. This is where the forces go and all that stuff. And then she said, it's just kind of an aside. She goes, and you know what? You can actually keep that going all the way around, make it a full circle, as long as all the forces are kind of pushing towards the middle. So she drew spokes from the middle of this thing out. She said, look at there. There's a bicycle wheel. Bicycle wheel essentially is an arch.
Sure.
And I looked at these two diagrams, this half circle and this full circle with the spokes. And I said, I raised my hand, and there's this moment of just kind of like, okay, you know what you need to do for your class participation grade. You got to speak up. I was like, I have kind of an interesting idea that may even be a complete tangent for what she's trying to do, but I'm going to ask it for my class participation grade. And I go, can you do both? And she said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, if you were to split the circle at the bottom and then move the two pieces of that bottom that are now separated, and you spread them out from each other. One, like if you're looking at the circle on the blackboard, you push one further into the blackboard and you pull one further out from the blackboard. Then you kind of have a helix shape, but it still looks like a circle when you look at it from
Sure.
that direction. If you turn it to the side, it actually looks close to that half circle. It's actually not a half circle. It turns out to be a parabola, I learned later, but it looks kind of like the half circle. And she said it was genius pedagogy at that point. Her answer was quick and definitive. She goes, "Tell us next week." And it was the perfect thing for me, because I was interested in this question, and it was a tangent that I would like to pursue. And she said, for the first time, it kind of never happens in school.
Sure.
She said, "Go ahead, take a left turn. Go ahead, go see what happens. Go follow that thread."
No, that's great.
Really,
That's
it
interesting.
was really cool.
Sure.
So I ended up going into the wood shop. I was really good with my hands. I had all these really great tricks that I learned. The woodworkers learned to do this stuff using jigs and cool techniques to avoid doing calculation. And so I was able to put together this thing by making a single piece that was kind of like a stone arch piece, but twisted a little bit. And that twist made it go into a helix shape. And then I was able to pull a wire through the middle of this thing and hold everything together. And without glue, the thing actually stood up.
Oh, interesting.
And so it turned out to be, yes, you can do that. I brought it back into the class. And there was lots of oohs and ahs. And I was even surprised myself. I didn't know I was going to be able to do this. It's like, whoa, this is kind of cool. And all kinds of cool questions arose, and people were talking about it, a lot of energy, and then a lot of great like ego boosts for me. It was like, look at this thing I kind of accidentally dropped into.
Sure.
But at that point, it was much more interesting to me to do that now, to keep pulling at that thread, than it was to do the assignment that the professor was actually setting up for us with this Stone Arch lecture.
Sure.
And so I just begged. I was like, again, it was just like always happening through my career as a student. It was like, I have things I'm interested in. Can I please just do those things? And there was a long kind of negotiation, not long, but for school, in terms of the school calendar, it's a couple of days, negotiation about whether or not I can just forego the assignment and pursue this thing. And the agreement was, yes, fine, you can do this, as long as it's architecture and not just a weird engineering project, because this is an architecture school and you're getting an architecture degree.
Sure.
As long as it's architecture, it means there's people who use it, and it has a specific site in the world. Like, you can tell me like what corner it's on.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay, great. It's a pedestrian bridge. I was like, as quick as I could, like pedestrian bridge, and it's at the corner of Ellis and 55th in Chicago, going across 55th. And so like the professor just kind of rolled her eyes and went, okay, fine, go ahead. And I was so excited. And I sat down. I was like, okay, this is really cool. This is such a cool shape. I've kind of discovered something. I'm going to make something happen with this thing. And the minute I sat down and realized that it had to go from this exact spot on south of 55th to this exact spot north of 55th and twisting over Ellis and land right at that spot, I went, oh, I can't fudge this. I'm going to have to calculate this shape so I can make it land there. And this wasn't like right angles, boxes,
sure.
Like length and width. This is a helical shape, rising up dramatically and descending. It's always making a left-hand turn as it goes the whole time. And I went, oh my goodness, what have I done?
Interesting.
And when I hit this moment, it was really interesting, because the first thought was dread.
Sure. Okay.
I'm no good at math. I can't do math. I've never been able to do math. I don't know how to do this. But the second thought, and it happened within 10 seconds, the second thought was, well, wait a minute. Math is actually going to help me get this thing.
Sure.
And I went, wait a minute. This is brand new. For the first time in my life, math isn't the obstacle to all my hopes and dreams, which is all it had always been. In this instance, it's the way to my hopes and dreams.
Interesting.
I want to make this thing happen, and math can help me get there. All of a sudden, I was really excited about the idea of doing math. It had never happened before in my life.
Sure.
And
interesting.
And I couldn't remember how to isolate a variable.
Sure.
I couldn't remember how to get x from one side of an equation to another. I mean, that's how much I avoided math. I was 20. How old was I? Like 22 years old, and I was like, I don't know how to get x from one side of an equation to another. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm gonna crack the math that I need in order to do this. And I went and got a 7th grade textbook, and with no shame, sat down at my desk among other graduate students and opened the front cover of the 7th grade algebra textbook and just started trying to figure it out.
Interesting.
How do I use this tool to get this thing? And every lesson that I learned as I went, I was able to hang it on this Helix Stone Arch project.
Interesting.
Oh, that can help me figure this out. Oh, this is part of how that works. Okay, I see how you get X from one side to the other. And actually, I remember getting an A on that test because I just memorized what the teacher told me
right
in 7th grade. But now I understand what it means. Oh, my gosh, the whole thing is the equal sign. If both sides of the equation are the same, always, you can do anything you want to it. I was like, that's amazing. And I was having all these great discoveries, and it was so fun and exciting and joyful and sticky. And I was, my self-image was as a problem solver was, being ignited and bolstered. And in 3 weeks, of joyous math discovery and exploration, I was able to derive the a formula that would spit out the shapes based on these helix shapes based on different parameters that I would put in. So I could put variables into this formula, and I could lengthen the thing, or I could shorten it. I could make it taller or smaller or shorter. And I was like, I can use this. And I had to derive that formula myself because I couldn't find it in the textbook, but I was able to.
Sure. I think
I sat back. Yeah,
no,
go ahead.
Keep going. Go ahead.
So I sat back and I said, what happened? This subject that I could not stand, and I avoided like the plague. And I was at graduate school for architecture, so that took some serious effort.
Sure.
To get to my last year in graduate school, that actually has like structures classes in engineering that require math. I did the bare minimum and got the hell out of there. I was able to kind of like the star athlete who can't read, work my way through and just survive. To not only being able to do it or being able to process it or being able to absorb it, but loving it.
Interesting.
What happened?
Sure.
What happened? And what was apparent to me was there was this element of this objective that had deep meaning to me. I did it to get there. I did it to get to it somewhere else. It wasn't about fighting it out with math. It was about fighting through math to get to where I wanted to go.
Yeah,
and all the things that growth was doing to propel me towards my goal.
Sure. It was finally like useful, right? Or like a real tangible reason to use it in kind of your daily life, instead of just kind of like, that's great, I'll probably never use this when you're in school, right?
Right. But what all the teachers always did, which made sense to do, was to try to explain to me how it would be useful.
Mm-hmm.
That's always what happens.
Yep.
You're going to need it for X. You're going to need it for Y. When you're here, you're going to thank me that I made you do these things, but that had no effect on me. And I question whether it ever has an effect on anyone.
Sure. I would put myself in the same boat as you. Like, I don't remember any of that stuff, right?
Right. So it's what the difference was is it originated. It wasn't someone taking and shoehorning me into an understanding of an opportunity. It was, I had this thing. It came from within me.
Sure.
This thing that I wanted that needed math.
No, I think that's great, man. I love that story. I think that's fascinating.
And thanks. So I sat, it was in that moment when I said, why isn't there an institutional opportunity?
Okay.
Why isn't there like a school or a class that operates in this way? Let's not worry about what I'm trying to teach you. Like what you need to, what do you want? Start with what you want. What do you really want that you're maybe not getting? That's a little farther, a little out of your reach, a little beyond your comfort zone, a little beyond your sphere of knowledge that you want so badly.
Mm-hmm.
You're willing to climb over anything to get it.
Interesting. Yeah.
Let's just start with that. And why don't I just go ahead and say, go, like that teacher did to me.
Sure.
Go ahead. Go get it. I'm not solving the problem for you. You tell me. You go get it. And let whatever needs to be learned in the interim just be learned because it must be learned in order to achieve the goal. That's kind of the generic description of what happened to me with this math.
Sure.
It could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're finding actually now with HackStudio, because that's actually where HackStudio has ended up. That's our pedagogical model.
Okay.
Start with the deep passion of something that you want to do. And then all the work is about the gap between where you are and where you need to be. And we don't have the answer for the gap. We just are there to keep you moving towards that thing, keep you in it, help you connect as deeply as possible with the outcome that you're seeking. And then whatever you're missing, and it's individual to a person. It's completely individual. Whatever you're missing in the case of my story, I was missing math.
Sure.
Whatever you're missing, you're going to come face to face with immediately.
That's interesting.
And that's your work. And because you want what's on the other side of it, you'll just do it.
Sure. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I love that.
So that's the story of how it's gone from school to what we're doing at Hackstudio.
No, I think that's great. So you kind of gave a quick overview, but what exactly is Hackstudio and who's it for?
So Hackstudio is kind of like I describe it differently every time I do it because it's such a different offering. It kind of needs to be explained in different ways.
Sure,
finding
that's great.
For people to understand. One way we talk about it is it's a support system for authentic pursuits.
Okay.
So it's helix-shaped stone arch for me. Was an authentic pursuit.
Yeah.
An authentic pursuit is our term, and what it means is any pursuit that originates within the heart of the pursuer. So there's lots of things that you can do, like cost-benefit analysis, or your friend can tell you that it's important or whatever, and you can have a logical reason for doing something. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about some emotional connection, something that just kind of wells up from inside you that you want to try or do.
Okay.
Which was the case for me with this thing. So that's one. First criterion is it originates within the heart of the pursuer. The second criterion is that it's defined and evaluated by the pursuer. It's not a teacher assigning it and then giving you a grade. That's someone else defining and evaluating it. I want it to be this because it's just it's coming from inside me, and it's stemming from my heart. And I'll know when it's good, because it's mine.
Okay, interesting.
So that's the second part. It's defined and evaluated by the pursuer. And then the third criterion for an authentic pursuit is that there's no pre-cut path apparent to the pursuer. No pre-cut path to success. So it's not like, oh, I just sign up for this program and I get there, or I use this kit, or I follow this checklist that's already been set up by someone else. So if it meets those three criteria, it's an authentic pursuit.
Okay.
Another example. So my helix-shaped stone arch project was that. It wasn't part of the curriculum. I kind of got interested in it. I kind of became emotionally connected to it. I wanted to pursue it, and I knew when it was, I knew when it was going to be awesome, or if it was falling short of awesome. And I wasn't doing it for the grade. It turns out it was in school, so it was going to get graded, but I wasn't doing it for the grade. And I definitely didn't know how I was going to get it done.
Okay, interesting.
So that was where it presented this great opportunity for me to grow in this really cool and unexpected way. Another example I give for authentic pursuits is like a guy who drives by a used car lot and sees this old cool pickup truck that reminds him of his childhood, and the spur of the moment he pulls over and he buys it and decides he's going to fix it up, but he's never done any mechanical work in his life.
Right.
That guy is about to embark on an authentic pursuit.
Got you. Okay, interesting.
So and they can range anywhere from that simple and that disconnected from career to being a career in and of itself. It can be super important. It can be super mundane. It doesn't matter. And it meets those criteria. It counts as an authentic pursuit. So Hackstudio is a support system for authentic pursuits. We have a framework and a way of working together in groups that create an ideal environment for authentic pursuits to be achieved.
Okay, so it could be kind of anything that I dream up, and you guys do it for kids, you guys do it for adults, correct, as well? And you basically and I just basically, walk me through, if I came to you and I said, I have this idea, or I don't have an idea, walk me through the whole kind of thing from me coming to you.
Sure, absolutely. Well, the engagement's a little bit different depending on how old you are.
Sure.
But the programs, kids come to us through a tryout.
Okay.
Because what we've learned is the idea of going after an authentic pursuit is not totally available to people in our culture because we've kind of coined it and it belongs to us. So we've learned it's not fair to put just some stuff up on a website that explains it and expect people to totally connect with the opportunity and come ready to tackle what we're trying to tackle.
Okay.
It needs a little more explanation. It needs a little exposure. Like, here's what it is. Here's how we operate. This is what we're trying to do. And so we learn we need to give kids and parents an opportunity to understand it a little deeper by having direct exposure to it and say, like, oh, okay, I understand that's really not quite for me. I was looking for something else. I was looking for a class in coding or something like that. We run into that. And we'd rather have that discovery made before people actually start working with us.
Sure.
And then the other piece is, because an authentic pursuit is because it's originating within the heart of the pursuer, and the intensity of the emotional connection is basically the key to the great, joyful learning and sticky learning and engaging, exciting learning that comes in that gap. We need to see if the potential participant is bringing that energy to the endeavor. If they're coming with something that they are actually very passionate about or are ready to engage in a particular way. And the way that we need people to engage is to honor each other's authentic pursuits with the same care that they would want theirs handled by others, because it's deeply personal.
Right.
And so if you're going into an environment where you're unsure that the thing you're vulnerably sharing with others or trotting out and letting yourself be seen doing, and frankly failing at for a while before you get it done, because there's no clear-cut path to success. If you're not sure that the people around you are going to handle it with that kind of generosity, you might be made fun of.
Sure.
People think it's sweet. You're not going to be likely to bring it as freely into this environment, and you're not going to be able to get the opportunity. You're not going to be able to seize the opportunity. So a highly supportive environment is required for doing the kind of work that we do. So we have a tryout.
Got you.
And a tryout to do all that. See if you like it, and we see if you're really ready to bring your passion to it and be very supportive and caring and understanding and empathetic with others.
Sure.
As they do theirs. And so we just test them there. And it's totally age appropriate. We started 4th grade.
Oh, very cool.
It's totally age appropriate for kids to not be ready for that.
Yep,
and
fair.
We have no judgment about it at all. And just say, okay, we're ready to serve the ones who are ready to jump into all the requirements of what this is going to entail. And so then we do that. Then when they come into the program, they come once a week with the same group of people.
Okay.
So that you have a group of people who are essentially there to support one another, because things are going to get hard. We're all going to fail. We're all going to screw things up. This is definitely my experience when I was doing the Helix Arts thing. I had to learn the math. I had got to this moment right at the beginning when, holy moly, I can't do this until I figure out math. I didn't expect that. This is going to be part of the work. And so what we do is we put people together in groups, because that moment is usually where everyone quits.
Yep.
And if you're left to your own devices and you have no one behind you and no one there to kind of talk through the process or scaffold that moment for you, you're just going to quit, because your brain is essentially evolved to get you out of uncomfortable situations. So you'll find a really great, very reasonable, very responsible reason to stop pursuing it when you hit that moment.
Sure.
But what research shows is that those moments are eased and mitigated when we have interpersonal connection with people. So when you know that the moment that you're struggling with is the same as the moment that those 4 people that are sitting across the table from you have experienced, and that you've seen them experience, that you've seen them overcome them, it makes that moment very different.
Interesting.
And because of the group dynamic, because we're all in it together, because we've been supporting each other week in and week out, when you arrive at that moment, you know you owe it to the group to stay in it, to not give up.
Sure.
Because you know that you're an example to them.
Right. So,
and you remember their example. So you say, this is just a typical moment of doing real things. So they do. So we meet. They meet every week for 2 hours.
Okay.
Beginning, we do this. We connect with each other, talk about these moments. You know, how's it going with your project? What's missing? Do you need the group's advice for anything? Do you need their support for anything? Cool. That's about 10, 15 minutes. Then we got the center chunk of the 2 hours is time to work on whatever it is. A lot of people consider or mistake Hackstudio for a maker space.
Okay.
And say like, oh, if it's a facility you go to do cool things and make your ideas happen, get your dreams done, that must mean it's a maker space. You must be making things, but that's not at all a requirement. What we're really interested in is what it is that kid really wants.
Sure.
So we've had, 11-year-old girls raise $1,500 for a charity that they really care about. That's just as valid a project as, one of our 10-year-old boys who wants to make a little wheeled scooter out of wood.
Okay.
It's just as good as someone who is looking to carve out more time in her week to spend time with her friends because she's overprogrammed.
Interesting. Okay.
Those all hold equal weight as projects to work on through Hackstudio. So they'll spend the middle part of the session working on those things in the same way that I was encouraged to work in grad school, which was, you tell us, like, how are you going to get this done? But it's all done in a very connected way. Mentors are there to sit with and talk to kids about what they're doing, to let that kid know that there's someone in it with them, to bounce ideas off of. But everything is couched in the terms of like, well, what would you do? Well, what do you think is right? And our mentors have to have a lot of patience to let a kid say, I think this would be right. And the mentor really believes it's wrong.
Sure.
And to say, okay, great, go ahead. Obviously, we make sure we're taking care of safety and things like that. But anything short of a safety issue,
sure,
we say, go ahead. And then when we hit safety issues, actually, what we do is say, well, I have a concern. The answer is still yes, go for it. But you have to have a concern, and our rules are that you have to address all concerns before you take action.
Okay, interesting.
So it lays all the agency in the hands of the kid so that they can be working towards their thing their way and run into the obstacles that are unique to them. So the obstacles are unique to them that are separating them from what they're getting, like as it was for me, the math separating me from achieving this healing stage so much. So we do that in the middle. Then we come back together at the end of the session and talk about it again, because we're likely to have hit some major roadblocks. We might get to the end of the session going, I really feel like quitting this because it's not proving my genius. Got some gut check moments. And so we talk about it again so that many different kids are saying the same thing. I've hit a tough spot. I'm not exactly sure what to do with it, but I'm going to stick with it. All of the work, and that's the end of the session, all the work goes into a framework where we have to ensure a commitment to getting the ultimate goal. So if we're sufficiently passionate about what we're trying to achieve, in our mind's eye, we know what it needs to be when it's done.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
If you really want it, it's not hard to describe what done is.
Sure.
So what we do is we we check to see if there's sufficient emotional connection with the project by asking for a story of why they're going to pursue this stuff. And for kids, it's pretty wide open. For adults, it becomes kind of the whole thing. But for the kids, it's like it's any kind of explanation of why is fine. But the key test is to give us a definition of done.
Sure. So I guess like just to kind of make it like totally clear for the listener, like go back to like the scooter example you gave a while ago. So like I'm a kid, I come in, I want to build a scooter, I go through the whole thing. You guys kind of provide me with the materials and the space and the tools to actually get it done. And then obviously the end goal is like, if I can ride the thing and it doesn't fall apart, you know, that's kind of my justification to say like, I'm done this project. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. It's the definition of done goes into the format. I will know I'm done when, and then you list the active, executable, verifiable criteria. Okay. That will define that as done.
Sure.
So, scooter guy. I want to make a scooter. The story of why is I just got done watching Back to the Future, and when Michael J. Fox took those boxes, and I saw those kids riding around on those boxes that had wheels on the bottom, and Michael J. Fox ripped the thing off, and I started skating away. I thought that was really cool, but actually I wish he'd kept it together because I thought the box thing looked cooler than the skateboard that he made out of it.
Sure.
That would be an example of the story of why. So I want to make one of those types of scooters out of wood. So that's the do. The definition of done is I will know I'm done when I've got something built out of wood that has handles, wheels on the bottom, and I've made it myself.
Right.
That's it. So those are criteria. It's active. I'm doing it. It's executable. I make the moves. I don't have to wait for someone else to do stuff. And it's verifiable. Handles, wheels, wood.
Got you.
So they have handles, wheels, and it makes it, and that I can ride on it and it doesn't fall apart.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And then through through Hackstudio, you guys have like obviously adults that can help them like cut the wood or, you know, that kind of thing. So
everything is in the hands of the kid. We have a building, but the building doesn't have anything to do with the project.
Okay.
It's coincidentally there in our minds. The materials, we have cardboard and paper and some basic stuff that can kind of plan and help you expose yourself to ideas.
Yeah.
But if you want nice dimensional lumber, you got to buy it.
Okay.
We keep some stock, but it's just as a courtesy, just to make it a little bit more convenient. Mm-hmm. But the materials are the responsibility of the participant. Because again, this is not about manufacturing success for people.
Sure.
It's about actually what do you do in the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and the learning that needs to take place. If we were to supply all the tools and know-how and wood, it would be tantamount to in my project with the Helix Arch, someone else doing the math for me.
Okay. Yeah, fair. No, that makes sense.
Right.
I think that's great though, right? Like that you guys just give them a space to just like a supportive space, right? Where they can basically be creative and build or do kind of whatever they want. And you almost like encourage working through your failures to see that you can succeed. And it's not always like easy, right? And I think that's basically what you guys are doing, right?
That's exactly what we're doing. So we're learning how to overcome struggle to get what we want, and all the great learning and growth that happens in between.
Sure. And I like, at least in my opinion, I don't think traditional education supports that. I think at all is kind of too strong of a word, but it's got to be pretty close to that, at least in my opinion.
I think traditional education is always looking for ways to do it, but I think they're hamstrung by traditional pedagogy.
Sure, that's fair.
There's only so much you can do in a room full of, to be generous, 14 if you got a really great private school, to 35 or 40, in a cash-strapped public school district, that all have to do the same thing.
Sure.
And they all have to reach the same outcome by the end of the lesson. There's very little you can do along these lines. It's just to the best efforts of the school district and the teacher, you're not going to be able to get much in this direction.
Sure.
Unless you have a really permissive school that will allow the individualization, customization of the experience, and just to let people pursue the things that originate within their own hearts. It's just a hard thing to do when all 30 people in the room have to reach the same point by the end of the day.
Sure. So are you guys looking to basically take this kind of nationwide, or kind of walk me through your locations and your plans to expand or not expand?
The first order of business is to get a really robust program happening in Evanston, Illinois.
Okay.
What we've done to this point is we've developed a really great transformative experience for those people who are ready to pursue something, really looking to pursue something that has deep meaning to them, and is ready to confront struggle along the way.
Sure.
The next step, we have this great program that works for many as well. The next step is to help people understand this opportunity so that we can get critical mass and have a really robust program. What we have is a great program that's serving early adopters, essentially.
Right. I got you.
This needs to move towards the mainstream before it starts turning into location 2.
Gotcha.
This has to be kind of more understood opportunity, and get people coming in and really getting what's going on. One of the obstacles we have, and it's something that we're still working to solve, is that our program requires the contribution of the participant.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
And we live in a culture, which is great. It's awesome that we live in this culture. We live in a culture now that has learned that providers of services, products, and services are basically taking the responsibility for all the hard parts. Right. That's why you buy an iPhone. Simplifies a whole bunch of stuff. That Apple takes care of a whole bunch of stuff for you. Sure. And a good product makes it so that I have to contribute less. I can consume it. And our product is actually the opposite of that. You come to HouseHaus because you're looking to contribute something to the equation, and to see what comes out of your contribution. So there's that piece of it. The other piece of it is that if we, meaning HouseHaus, the staff, the administrators, and the participants, that's the we, if we're doing our job right, you're going to hit a moment of total dread, like I did. Sure. Oh my God, what have I done? And so that's complicated for the business.
Yeah, fair.
because it's absolutely understandable for someone to hit that moment and go, okay, HouseHaus seems cool, but I'm good. I'm going to go check something else out now.
I got you.
And that's like that check moment, and not everyone's ready to say, oh, okay, now I've hit this moment. And if you really have a significant passion for something, and you're determined to get emotionally connected to the outcome, you're going to move through that. And through our supportive structure connection at the beginning and end of every session, if you're in it with the people, and you like those people and you like being part of that kind of connection, you're going to move through that moment to the other side. If you're a little less willing to give yourself to those interpersonal interaction components of our program, and if you're not really connected with what you're trying to accomplish, you just kind of picked it out of the menu, It's
Sure.
like, it looks like everybody else is kind of making things with wood. I'm just going to go ahead and make things with wood. When you hit that tough moment, that moment of struggle, you're just going to be less likely to continue participating.
No, that makes
That's
sense.
our challenge right now. That's our challenge right now, is how to connect this with the culture that we're living in today, and in a way that people understand it and want to really dive into and give themselves to it.
No, I think it's not a bad problem to necessarily have, though, because I think more and more people are looking to kind of basically just have a place that they can create whatever they want and get support and figure it out, right? And I think that's great what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
So,
and parents are becoming more and more aware of the need for a facility like this, or an opportunity like this.
totally.
More of a facility. But Angela Duckworth just released a book called Grit, and she had been on a TED circuit for a long time before the book came out, explaining her research that has shown that the greatest predictor of success across the board is grit.
Sure.
Which at Hackstudio, we have a simplified definition. It's not the same as Angela Duckworth. Hers is more complete. But ours is essentially the ability to keep going when things go wrong.
Sure.
And that is the greatest predictor of success. And so what all these other things that we're doing with kids are great, and they're not detrimental, but they're missing an important component.
Yeah. No,
which is essentially the opportunity to fail and then to know what to do with it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. Yeah, that's interesting.
We spend a lot of our energy protecting our kids from failure. Because, of course, we're nice people and we want to be nice to our kids. And it's hard emotionally as a parent to watch your kids struggle or fail outright, and then have to pick themselves up. And what to do as parents in that moment is not everybody knows what to do in that moment, and we all fail at it. We all screw that up, and we don't want to find ourselves in that situation. And so it's understandable, but there needs to be a place where, like we did when we were kids, our generation, I'm in my 40s, when we were growing up, that was just built into life.
Sure. Yeah.
You went out and you didn't have, the parents didn't even know what you're doing. And there's drawbacks to that too. But
Sure.
there's the benefit of when we got in this sticky situation, we had to figure our way out of it.
Yeah.
We were out biking with our buddies, and if I was out biking with my buddies and they ditched me,
Yep.
3 miles from home, I had to find my way home.
Yeah, you couldn't pull out your smartphone and Google Maps the route home. That doesn't exist. Yeah, no, it's a good point.
That was built into life. Now it is not anymore.
Sure.
And so we need opportunities.
And you're bringing it back
in order to be able to. Yeah, we need opportunities to run into sticky moments and pull yourself out of them. With a great group of people standing right there, standing right by you. And which is a little better than what we had when we were kids.
No,
we didn't have.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that's great. But Mike, sadly, we're coming to the end of the show. So let's maybe close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself and Hackstudio.
Yeah. Hackstudio.com is our website. That's really the best place to go. We've got a Facebook page as well.
Sure.
Follow. Phone numbers and things are on there. And one thing I would just add is that we have a really great adult program. The adult program is basically all the same stuff.
Sure.
But it's basically for people who have something off to the side that they have always wished they could do. I think about people who kind of daydream about being a novelist, or someone who's got a set of songs that they've never shared with anybody, or they'd like to make change in their career or something like that. But it's about having something that they wish they could be doing that's not quite getting done, that they'd like to set in motion. That's what our Hackstudio adult program is. It's the same kind of format as it is with the kids. A lot heavier on the connection and storytelling and sharing about the process and the difficult parts of it.
Sure. No, I think that's great, Mike. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time in your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
Bye.
talk to you.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show was done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep them for the future.